All right, so we're gonna move to the NFL. We did this early in the season after the first 6 weeks. Did a little recap, give a early prediction on the playoff picture. 6 weeks more into the season, with 6 weeks left, we're gonna do this once again with our late season recap. This time, we're gonna start with the AFC, which is a little bit more crazy than the NFC, I would say. Just looking at things, you got more teams that are in legitimate playoff contention. So just going through it, just to start here, you got top four teams, division leaders: Ravens, Chiefs, Jags, and Dolphins. Nothing really crazy right there. All with 3 losses. The Ravens have an extra win over everybody else. That's why they're number one. And then the wild card teams are currently the Steelers and Browns, who are 7-4, and then the Colts, who are 6-5. So nothing insanely crazy there. Maybe the Colts. Of course, they lost Anthony Richardson early in the season after like only 4 or 5 weeks. Gardner Minshew has been able to keep them afloat that whole time. Do I think they'll still be in there at the end of the season? Probably not. They'll probably beat the Titans this week, so that'll help. But as we go into the bubble teams and the hunt, the teams I think that have a legitimate chance really are the teams with a winning record or at 500. You got the Texans, who just dropped out. They're 6-5. You got the Broncos at 6-5. They're on a 5-game winning streak. It's wild to see after we extensively covered their 70-point defensive outing against the Dolphins. And then the Bills at 6-6 again. Kind of frustrating season for them. They just lost to the Eagles. We talked about that last week. They have a bye this week to kind of recharge to get to this last stretch of the season. For me, to be honest with you, I think it's probably going to end up, maybe switching out the Browns or Colts with, one of these 3 teams there. I think the Steelers will be able to, if they play like they have in the past few weeks, the defense has still been better. And obviously the offense has been better since they fired Matt Canada finally. I think they'll be able to keep the ship going and stay in there. And since they're at 5 right now, it'll be a lot more. It'll take a lot more for them to drop all the way down outside of the playoffs at the 8 seed or worse. So, yeah, I'd say it'd be more likely just because the Browns, they're in a QB carousel right now. They got Joe Flacco starting this week instead of DTR. So it's more likely that the Browns or the Colts will drop out. One of those teams will jump ahead of them.
Yeah, I think when we get towards the later parts of the season, we're going to have some fun discussions about the AFC's fight for the 1 seed, especially because as right now, I think these 4 teams, the Ravens, Chiefs, Jags, and Dolphins, probably remain where they are as their division leaders. It'll just be interesting to see where each of them falls as we start to get into the point where the seeds will matter a little more. Because right now, they're all division leaders and the playoffs don't start tomorrow. So it doesn't really matter about who gets to bye because it could change very easily. But I think those 4 teams are fun to consider for the future. Steelers, through Mike Tomlin's voodoo, are probably safe. They have played good defense most of the season. They've started to play some decent offense since firing Matt Canada. Mike Tomlin seemed super excited about that. You could hear him yelling, playing my music as if he was Dion when they went into the locker room after that win. Good to have 400 yards under your belt. So I think the Steelers are probably safe. But the Browns in this QB carousel are not quite selling it to me anymore. The defense has been mostly good, but they've had a few rough matchups here and there. And I think the teams like the Texans and Broncos are definitely more scrappier teams that if it comes down to who can survive to push through and get a spot, I'm surprised to say this, but I think that the Broncos and Texans are more convincing than the Browns. Colts are weird. The Minshew mania has been paying off, and they are doing well. I could see a scenario where we get 2 from the AFC North with the Steelers and Jags, and the 3 from the AFC South if the Colts and Texans can sneak up in there and take the Browns out. But the Colts are also, I think, one of the shakier teams that if it comes down to these late season games where we're starting to make pushes here and there, I trust Russell Wilson and the Broncos offense more right now than that Colts team. Not that the Colts have been bad. They did get Jonathan Taylor back. They look a little more like a firm team. I think they look to be pretty good. The Bills as well could be making a splash to get up into those spots, but they have just not moved me too well this season. I think they have a harder path because of some of the tiebreakers that they've already conceded to teams like the Broncos or the Jaguars. Not that the Jaguars are in their way right now since they're a division leader, but I think that the the Texans and Broncos are probably not only two, I think, the most fun picks to make it into the playoffs. I think that those would be fun. The Broncos are actually entertaining to watch now. But I think that they're probably the most plausible in the AFC to come out of that one. So, yeah. As Terrence said, the NFC is not like the most crazy thing. We have a higher high for sure and some lower lows, not by much. The worst team in the AFC is the Patriots at 2-9. Worst in the NFC is the Panthers at 1-10, and the Cardinals at 2-10. So the lows are still pretty low, but the highs are higher. Starting immediately off with the Eagles, who are 10-1. This one will get a little weird in a second with the records, just because of the Cowboys and Seahawks having played a game on Thursday, and obviously this is pre-Sunday. But things are still pretty much the same-ish. But the Eagles are 10-1, Niners 8-3, second, Lions 8-3 as well in third. The Falcons are fourth, but that's because they're a division leader. They're 5-6. The NFC South the past few years has been popcorn watching football, man. It's great. It's entertaining. Where else do you get to see who can fight to win the division with a losing record? It's the NFC South. So the Falcons are fourth at 5-6, but we're going to jump back up. Cowboys at 5 are now 9-3 after their win. And then the Vikings are 6-6. They've slipped a little bit here recently, and the Seahawks now at 6-6 are in danger. Both these two teams are in danger of some of their division rivals, as the Packers have been heating up as the Vikings have started to falter again. They're 5-6, sitting on the bubble. The Rams are 5-6, climbing up as they got a little healthy. Have a win against the Seahawks. That could be a little dangerous if they end up being tied. The Saints, Buccaneers, and Panthers are all definitely in the race right now because of the division, and you might think that sounds crazy. The Panthers are 1-10. If the Panthers lose this week, they're out. So don't worry about it. They'd have to win out, and a bunch of other stuff would have to go on. We're not going to spend too much time on worrying about the Panthers. But the Saints and Buccaneers are feasible options for hosting a playoff game. Other than that, though, I don't think you're going to be seeing any NFC South teams in the wild card spot. This is going to be which of these teams can win the division. Same discussion that we had last year, except it was a little more open than this a little bit further into the season once Steve Wilkes had the Panthers looking competitive again. So, realistically, though, it's going to be which NFC South team gets into the 4th spot and then gets obliterated by the Cowboys, most likely, unless the Cowboys make some moves and steal a spot from the Eagles. And then whoever the 5th seed is probably the better matchup. There's not many scenarios where I think the NFC South team is going to take the 4th seed and be okay and make it further than that. So realistically, while you do have the whole NFC South to worry about as far as who's making the playoff picture, they're all looking at the 4th spot because of the division leader spot. What's actually worth watching is going to be the Vikings, Seahawks, Rams, and Packers in these two interdivisional battles to see which teams get in. Personally, if Josh Dobbs plays like he did last week, every week, the Vikings are done. But I don't think he's going to be anywhere near as bad as that. I don't think it's going to be as high as it was when he first got there. You come down to reality. Sometimes you do that by crashing. I think they just crashed, and I think they'll recover even despite the performance. They could have beaten the Bears. They just had a few things still go wrong down the stretch. So I think the Vikings are probably safe, and I think the Seahawks will also probably hold on. But these two teams are in danger of throwing it away, and we could very well see a situation where they both drop and the Packers and Rams take it. But me personally, I think that they're going to lock in these next few weeks, and I think the NFC playoff picture, aside from the NFC South spot, isn't going to fluctuate that much, and that one as well might not change too drastically either.
Yeah, I think what it is right now, I think is pretty set. Obviously, you got Eagles and Niners playing this weekend. We just talked about it. The Cowboys, they're going to end up playing the Eagles. Week after that, they play the Lions as well. So, you've got some matchups here that can change things. But yeah, for the most part, I think it's going to be real simple here. Eagles are probably going to stay at number 1, whether they win or lose this week. And I did pick the Niners in our picks earlier. But I'd still say Eagles will probably stay at number 1 because you need them to lose again for the Niners to tie with them. And, I did say early in the season that the Cowboys, would split the season series. So maybe Cowboys will beat the Eagles and things will get very interesting there with all 3 teams having 3 losses. But outside of that, I don't think the Eagles will probably lose much. So I'll say Eagles stay at 1, Niners stay at 2. Lions will probably stay at 3. NFC South is literally a week to week thing, but I think right now it's either going to be either between the Saints or the Falcons. Buccaneers, they're only one game behind, but not super impressive. I don't think they'll get back into the fold. They were there early in the season, but now I don't think it's really going to happen. Um, and of course, the Panthers, they're look. I mean, they're eliminated. Like, they're gonna if they somehow by whatever voodoo powers there are out there win the next 6 games, sure. And you still need a bunch of help. You need guys. You need other teams to lose out. Basically, Bucks are gonna have to win some games and then lose a bunch of games. Like it's not gonna happen. So Panthers, despite not being mathematically eliminated, they're done. So I think it's just gonna be Falcons or Saints there. And just like last year, I think the Cowboys will basically have a bye for their first game in the playoffs against an NFC South bottom feeder team. So they can say they got a home game, doesn't matter. Cowboys will probably easily win that one at 5. I think the only real struggle here would be, like you said, from 6 and 7. You'd assume Josh Dobbs won't throw 4 picks again, but he hasn't been the best the past couple weeks after he first got there. Maybe it'll figure something out there after the bye week. But I think I would still say Vikings and Seahawks will be there at 6 and 7. And again, the Cowboys, whoever they play in the first round, they'll win. And I think the Seahawks and Vikings will probably lose to whoever be 2 and 3 if it's the Niners and the Lions. So yeah, I think this one's pretty much set here. I don't really see too much going on. And once you get past the wild card round, it'll be these top 4 teams anyway. So yeah, I think the bottom of the NFC is really just kind of going through the motions there. Maybe you might get some upsets, but don't really think so.